My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped the stack of faded letters onto the garage floor. The soft glow of the Christmas lights I'd spent all morning hanging in the living room now filtered through the open door, casting long, accusing shadows across the concrete. These weren't just any letters. They were poison wrapped in yellowed envelopes, addressed to my late husband Harold in handwriting I didn't recognize. And tonight, on Christmas Eve, the woman who'd written them would walk through my front door, smiling like she belonged here. "You knew," I whispered to the empty garage, my voice cracking. Not to Harold. He'd been dead for 2 years now, but to the memory of the man I'd thought he was. The woman I'd invited, the one I'd spent 6 months pretending to welcome with open arms, would arrive soon. And when she did, everything would come crashing down. I smiled at the thought. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a 62-year-old retired librarian named Margaret Maggie Ellis, who'd swallowed betrayal after betrayal, playing the grieving widow while quietly assembling the perfect storm. "Come in, Clara," I'd say when she arrived, my voice sweet as the peppermint bark cooling on the kitchen counter. "We've been waiting for you." And that's when the screaming would start. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. To 6 months ago, when my carefully preserved world cracked wide open. To the day I discovered that my 38-year marriage had been built on a foundation of lies. It was a warm July afternoon in Tacoma, Washington, the kind of rare Pacific Northwest day where the sun actually shines and people forget about the rain for a few hours. I'd sold our old family home in Seattle after Harold's sudden heart attack and moved into this cozy single-story rambler in a quiet neighborhood near Point Defiance Park. It was supposed to be a fresh start, closer to our daughter Rebecca, Becca, Harper, and her family in nearby Gig Harbor. Becca was 36 now, married to Daniel Harper, a project manager who was always on calls, even during family dinners. They had 2 beautiful grandchildren for me, Lily, 8, and Jack, 6, who kept me going on the darkest days. I'd spent 35 years as head librarian at the downtown branch, recommending mysteries and romances to patrons while living what I thought was my own quiet love story. Harold had been a structural engineer, reliable, predictable, the man who fixed leaky faucets and planned our annual drives down the Oregon coast. We met in 1984, married in 86, weathered storms together, my bout with thyroid issues in the 90s, his knee replacement in 2010, the empty nest when Becca left for college. He was supposed to be my forever. That July day, I was finally tackling the garage, boxes of Harold's old work files I'd avoided since the funeral. Grief makes you procrastinate the hardest tasks. In a battered metal filing box labeled Personal Archives, buried under blueprints and tax returns, I found a bundle of letters tied with faded red ribbon. About 50 envelopes, all addressed to Harold at a P.O. box in Seattle I'd never known about. Postmarks spanned decades, 1983 to 2015. The return address, Clara Voss, various locations in California. Clara Voss. The name hit me like ice water. She'd been Harold's old friend from his California days before we met, a glamorous woman who'd visited us twice in the early 90s. Tall, elegant, with silver-streaked hair even then, and a laugh that commanded attention. Harold had always brushed her off as just someone from a past job, but I'd caught the way they looked at each other, the hushed conversations in the den. I dismissed it as my imagination. I sat cross-legged on the cool garage floor, heart pounding, and opened the earliest letter. Dated March 1983, 3 years before we even met. My dearest Harold, last weekend in San Francisco was everything I dreamed. Your hands, your whispers, I'll carry them until we can be together again. Tell me you've ended things with that woman you're seeing. We deserve our chance. Forever yours, Clara. That woman? Harold had been dating someone casually when we met, but he'd said it was over. My throat tightened as I tore into the next letters. They painted a devastating picture, a passionate affair that began in 1981 when Harold was working on a bridge project in Los Angeles. Stolen weekends in hotels, declarations of undying love, promises to leave whoever stood in their way. Then came the letters from 1987, our first year of marriage. Harold, my love, the baby is kicking so hard tonight. I know you wanted to be here, but I understand why you couldn't leave her yet. Just promise me, after the baby's born, you'll tell Margaret the truth. We can raise our child together. I miss you desperately. Clara, baby, our child. The words blurred through tears. We'd struggled to conceive early on. I'd had a miscarriage in '88 that nearly broke us. Harold had been so supportive, holding me through the nights I cried. But these letters, he was with Clara during that time. While I grieved, I found photos tucked inside. Harold and Clara on a beach in Malibu, arms wrapped around each other, dated 1986, our wedding year. Another from 1992, them at a vineyard, Clara visibly pregnant. And bank transfer receipts, thousands of dollars from Harold's secret account to Clara over the years, labeled support. By the time I reached the later letters, 2010s, when Clara begged him to retire with her in San Diego, the garage was spinning. I called my best friend Louise Patterson immediately. Louise, everyone called her Lou, was 60, a retired ER nurse with a sharp tongue and a heart of gold. We'd been inseparable since our kids were in preschool together. Lou, you need to come over.
Now.
I found letters. Harold had another woman. For decades. She was at my door in 15 minutes, still in her gardening clothes. We spread the letters across the dining table like evidence in a murder trial. Good God, Maggie, Lou whispered as she read. Clara Voss? That fancy lady who visited and acted like she owned the place? This isn't just an affair. This is a whole second life. And a child, I said, voice hollow. She mentions a baby. Our timelines, Harold was traveling a lot when we were trying for Becca. Lou hugged me tight. That bastard. But he's gone. You can't yell at him now. What are you going to do? What could I do? Harold was dead. But Clara wasn't. I searched her online that night. 82 years old, living in an upscale retirement community in Palm Springs. Widowed, conveniently. No children listed publicly. But the letters mentioned a son, Gregory Voss, born 1988. I hired a private investigator the next week. Dr. Elias Grant, our old family doctor, recommended a discreet one. Mark Ruiz, 52, former detective with a calm demeanor. Over coffee in a quiet Tacoma cafe, I handed him copies of the letters. This is explosive, Mrs. Ellis, Mark said gravely. I'll trace Clara, the money trail, and this possible child. It cost a chunk of Harold's life insurance, but I needed answers. While waiting, I became an expert at pretending. Sunday dinners with Becca and Daniel, playing with Lily and Jack, smiling through their questions about Grandpa Harold. But inside, something cold and hard was forming. Mark's report came 3 weeks later. Devastating doesn't begin to cover it. Clara and Harold's affair never ended. It continued throughout our entire marriage, secret meetings whenever he traveled for work. The child was real, Gregory Voss, now 38, living in Portland, working as a real estate developer. DNA records, accessed legally through public channels, confirmed Harold as the father. Harold had paid private school tuition, college, even helped Gregory buy his first home, all from a hidden trust fund worth over $800,000 that he'd set up in the 90s. Gregory knew everything. Recent emails Mark had ways showed him contacting Clara after Harold's death. "Mom, now that Dad's gone, when do we approach his other family? There's inheritance due." Inheritance. Harold's will left everything to me and Becca, house, savings, retirement accounts. But this secret trust? It bypassed us completely. And the biggest twist, Daniel Harper, my son-in-law, knew. Mark found transactions. Daniel had partnered with Gregory on a property flip 2 years ago. They were friends. Daniel had even attended Gregory's wedding last year. He'd known about Harold's secret son and never said a word, probably protecting some business interest. My own daughter's husband, complicit in hiding my husband's betrayal. I didn't explode. Not yet. Instead, I planned. Christmas was coming, our family's biggest tradition. Big dinner at my house, Becca's family, Lou, a few cousins. Why not make it unforgettable? Invite Clara. Invite Gregory. Expose the truth in front of everyone Harold had lied to. Lou tried to talk me out of it. "Maggie, this will destroy Becca. Think about the grandkids. They deserve the truth," I said coldly. Just like I did. Harold doesn't get to die and take his secrets with him. I contacted Clara first, an anonymous email from a burner account. "I know about Gregory and the trust. Come to Christmas Eve dinner, or everything goes public, letters, photos, bank records." Her reply came fast. "Margaret, I wondered when you'd find out. Harold always said you were smarter than you looked." "Fine. But be careful. You might not like all the truths that come out." Gregory was easier. I messaged him on LinkedIn as an old friend of your father's wanting to connect the families. He responded eagerly, greed in every word. The months leading up to Christmas were surreal. I decorated early, baked cookies with the grandkids, hosted Thanksgiving like nothing was wrong. Daniel grew nervous around me, making excuses for extra work trips. Becca confided he seemed distant, but I just smiled and said marriages have rough patches. Lou became my co-conspirator. "If this goes south, I'm backing you up. But Maggie, are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything. I met with a lawyer, Laura Jennings, a sharp estate attorney in Seattle. She reviewed the documents. "We can challenge the trust, undue influence, fraudulent concealment. You could get it all." But I wanted more than money. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Blindsided, humiliated, exposed. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow, rare and magical in Tacoma. The house smelled of roasted prime rib, garlic mashed potatoes, and cinnamon from the apple pie. I'd set the table beautifully. My grandmother's china, crystal glasses, candles flickering. Becca, Daniel, and the kids arrived first. Lily and Jack ran to hug me, packages rustling. Daniel avoided my eyes. Lou came next, bearing wine and a knowing look. Then the doorbell rang. Showtime. I opened it to find Clara Voss on my porch, frail now at 82, leaning on a cane, but still elegant in a red velvet coat, oxygen tank discreetly wheeled behind her. "Margaret, dear," she said with a thin smile. "Merry Christmas." Right behind her stood Gregory, tall like Harold, same jawline, same eyes. My stomach twisted. "Thank you for inviting us," he said smoothly. Dad would have wanted the families united. I stepped aside. "Come in. We're just getting started." As they hung their coats, I caught Daniel's face. He went white, recognizing Gregory immediately. Dinner was served. We gathered around the table. Becca confused but polite, the kids excited about presents, Lou watching like a hawk. I raised my glass for a toast. To family, I said sweetly, and to truths long buried. Then I opened the folder I'd hidden under my napkin, the letters, photos, trust documents, Mark's report. I passed them around. Harold had a second family, I announced calmly. Clara was his mistress for over 40 years. Gregory is his son, your half-brother, Becca. And Daniel, you've known for years. The room erupted. Becca's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. What? She whispered, turning to Daniel. Clara remained composed. Harold loved us both in his way. Gregory looked greedy no more, just cornered. And that's when the real screaming began. The silence that followed my toast lasted only a heartbeat, but it felt like an eternity. 10 faces around my beautifully set Christmas table, candlelight flickering on the crystal glasses, the scent of prime rib and rosemary filling the air, and every single one of them was frozen in shock. Becca's wine glass lay shattered on the hardwood floor, red Cabernet spreading like blood across the planks. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, darted from the stack of letters and photographs I'd just passed around to Daniel's ashen face, then to Gregory, the stranger who shared her father's jawline, her father's eyes. Mom, Becca whispered, her voice breaking. What is this? Tell me this is some kind of sick joke. I folded my hands calmly in my lap, though inside my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. It's no joke, sweetheart. These are your father's letters. To his mistress of over 40 years, Clara Voss. I nodded toward Clara, who sat at the far end of the table in her red velvet coat, cane resting against her chair, oxygen tank humming softly. She met my gaze without flinching, lips pressed into a thin line. And this, I continued, sliding a DNA report across the table toward Becca, proves that Gregory here is Harold's son, your half-brother, born in 1988, the year I was recovering from my miscarriage, and your father was supposedly working late on that bridge project in Sacramento. Gregory shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his expensive watch, Harold's taste exactly, glinting in the candlelight. He'd come expecting a warm family reunion, maybe a quiet discussion about Dad's estate. Instead, he was cornered. Becca turned slowly to Daniel. You knew him? Her voice rose. You've been golfing with my father's secret son? And you never told me? Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Becca, baby, it's not what you think. Not what I think. She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. My husband has been doing business with my father's illegitimate child, hiding it from me, from Mom, and it's not what I think. Lily and Jack, sensing the tension, had gone quiet in their seats, toys forgotten. Lily's lower lip trembled. Grandma, why is everyone mad? I reached over and squeezed her small hand. It's okay, sweetie. The grown-ups just have some old stories to sort out. Lou, bless her, stood up smoothly. Come on, kids. Let's go see if the cookies in the kitchen are cool enough for frosting. She herded them out, shooting me a look that said, You've got this, but hurry. The door to the kitchen swung shut, and the real storm began. Clara spoke first, her voice surprisingly strong for someone on oxygen. Margaret, I came here tonight because you threatened me. But let's not pretend you're the only victim. Harold loved me first. He only married you because I refused to leave my husband at the time. He settled. Settled. I repeated, my voice low and dangerous. He built the life with me, raised Becca with me, held my hand through cancer scares and empty Christmases when work supposedly kept him away. And all those years, he was flying to California to play house with you? Clara's eyes flashed. He never stopped loving me. He told me so every time we met. He paid for Gregory's education, his first house. He was going to leave you in 2005 after your thyroid surgery, but you got sick again, and he felt guilty. Becca made a choke sound. Stop. Just stop. Gregory finally spoke, his tone defensive. Look, I didn't ask to be born into this mess. Dad, Harold, reached out when I was 16, told me the truth, said he wanted to make it right financially. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but you did. I said coldly. You and Daniel here have been partners on 3 property deals in the last 5 years. Over $2 million flipped. And not once did either of you think, maybe Harold's wife and daughter should know he had another son siphoning off money into his secret trust. Daniel stood abruptly, chair scraping. Maggie, I swear, I only found out about Gregory 2 years ago. Harold confided in me before he died, said he wanted someone to look after the boy if anything happened. I thought it was a one-time thing, some old mistake. I didn't know the extent. Liar. Lou called from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. She'd clearly been listening. You attended Gregory's wedding last year. I saw the photos on Facebook before you untagged yourself. Daniel's face crumpled. Becca, please. It was business. Good investments. I thought if I kept it quiet. You thought you'd protect your profits. Becca finished, tears streaming now. How long have you been lying to me? Were you ever going to tell me I had a brother? Gregory tried to play peacemaker. Maybe we can all calm down and talk about this rationally. There's money, Dad's trust. It's substantial. We could. Money. I laughed, the sound bitter. That's what this is about for you, isn't it? You thought you'd waltz in here, play the long-lost son, and get a piece of the estate that should have gone to Becca and the grandkids. Clara leaned forward. Harold wanted Gregory provided for. He felt guilty his whole life. Guilty, I repeated. He felt guilty while he was making love to me on our anniversaries, while he was coaching Becca's soccer team and telling me how lucky he was to have us. All those years, he was living a double life, and I'm supposed to what? Share the inheritance with his affair baby because he felt bad. Becca stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. I can't breathe in here. She grabbed her coat from the hall tree and stormed out the front door, slamming it behind her. Daniel started after her, but I blocked his path. Let her go. She needs space from you right now. He looked desperate. Maggie, please, help me fix this. Fix this, I said quietly. You helped hide it. You don't get to ask me for help. Gregory pulled out his phone. Maybe I should leave. This was clearly a mistake. Oh no, I said, my voice steel. You're not going anywhere yet. You wanted family unity, Gregory? Congratulations. You're getting it. I walked to the Christmas tree and retrieved a thick envelope from beneath it, the one I'd wrapped in silver paper with a red bow. Harold's name was on the tag, in my handwriting. I'd planned this moment for months. Harold always opened his gifts last, I said to the room. Tradition. Since he's not here, Gregory, why don't you do the honors? After all, you're his son too. Gregory hesitated, then took the envelope. He opened it carefully, expecting perhaps a check or a letter from his father. Instead, out spilled copies of the trust documents, bank statements, and a flash drive. On that drive, I said, are scanned copies of every letter, every photo, every transaction, plus recordings of my conversations with a private investigator, and emails between you and Daniel discussing how to handle the widow if she ever found out. Gregory's face went white. You recorded us? Legally, I confirmed. One-party consent state. And Laura Jennings, my estate attorney, has the originals. She's filing papers next week to challenge the trust. Fraudulent concealment, undue influence, breach of fiduciary duty. Every dollar Harold funneled to you, and Clara comes back to Becca and me. Clara clutched her cane. You vicious woman. Harold would be ashamed. Harold is dead, I said flatly, and he doesn't get a vote anymore. The front door opened again. Becca coming back in, cheeks red from the cold, eyes swollen. She looked at Daniel. I called an Uber. I'm taking the kids to my sister's for the night. Don't follow us. Daniel reached for her. Becca, please. She stepped back. How could you look at Lily and Jack every day, knowing you were helping hide this? Knowing their grandfather had another son he loved more? He didn't love me more, Gregory muttered. He barely knew me. Then why did he leave you everything? Becca shot back. Mom and I got the house and the retirement accounts. You got the investments, the offshore stuff he hid. $800,000, Gregory. While Mom struggled to pay medical bills after her surgery. I hadn't known the exact amount until Mark's final report last week. Hearing Becca say it out loud made it real. Clara stood slowly, leaning heavily on her cane. This is ugly. All of it. Harold wanted peace, not this circus. Peace. I stepped closer to her. You had 40 years of him. Stolen weekends, secret birthdays with your son, phone calls on our anniversaries. I had half a husband, and when he died, I grieved a man who never fully existed. You don't get peace, Clara. You get consequences. She met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw something crack in her composure. He did love you, Margaret. In his way. He said you were the steady one. The good one. The good one, I repeated. The one who stayed home and raised his legitimate child while he played daddy in California when it suited him. Lou returned from the kitchen. Kids are watching a movie with headphones. This needs to wrap up before they come looking. Clara gathered her coat. I'm leaving. Gregory, take me back to the hotel. Gregory stood, looking lost. Mrs. Ellis, Margaret, I never meant. Save it, I said. You've got a week to retain counsel. Laura's very thorough. They left quietly, the front door closing with a soft click that somehow felt louder than Becca's slam. Daniel tried one last time. Becca, let me drive you. No. She looked at me, eyes fierce. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have seen something. I should have. You couldn't have, I said, pulling her into a hug. None of us could. He was very good at lying. After they all left, Becca with the kids, Daniel trailing helplessly behind in his own car, the house fell silent. Lou poured us both a large glass of bourbon. To truth, she toasted. To survival, I corrected. We sat by the dying fire, the beautiful dinner cold and untouched on the table. The Christmas lights still twinkled, but they looked different now. Less festive, more like evidence. You did it, Lou said quietly. You exposed them all. I stared into the flames. But at what cost? Becca's marriage might not survive this. The kids. Daniel did that, Lou said firmly. Not you. You just turned on the lights. I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. I'd spent 6 months planning this moment, imagining satisfaction, maybe even joy. Instead, I felt empty, like I'd burned down the house to kill the termites. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown California number. From Clara. There's more you don't know. Harold left a letter for you. In the safe deposit box you never opened. Key is in his old tackle box. Read it before you destroy everything. I stared at the screen long after it went dark. More secrets. Of course there were. The house felt cavernous after everyone left. The Christmas lights still twinkled mockingly from the tree. The prime rib sat congealed on the platter, and the shattered wine glass lay in pieces near Becca's abandoned chair. Lou and I cleaned up in near silence, wrapping leftovers, blowing out candles, sweeping up glass. Every clink of china felt like an accusation. "You okay?" Lou finally asked, drying her hands on a dish towel. "No," I admitted, sinking into the armchair by the fireplace. "I thought tonight would feel better, like justice. But it just feels like I broke my daughter's heart on Christmas Eve." Lou sat across from me, pouring the last of the bourbon into our glasses. "You didn't break it, Maggie. Harold did, years ago. Daniel helped bury the pieces. You just dug them up so they could finally heal right." I stare at my phone, Clara's text still glowing on the screen. "Harold left a letter for you. In the safe deposit box you never opened. Key is in his old tackle box." Harold's tackle box. He'd kept it in the garage all these years. A green metal thing full of lures and hooks he hadn't touched since the 90s. He'd always said fishing bored him after we married, preferred golfing with clients. Now I wondered if those fishing trips had been excuses to meet Clara. "I'll go look tomorrow," I said. "Bank's closed tonight anyway." Lou nodded. "Want me to come with?" "Yes, please." She stayed the night in the guest room, something she'd done often since Harold died. We didn't talk much more, just watched an old movie until we both dozed off. But I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Becca's face crumpling, Daniel's guilt, Gregory's shock, Clara's cold composure. Christmas morning dawned gray and cold. No grandkids bursting in with excitement. No Harold making his famous cinnamon French toast. Just the quiet hum of the furnace and the weight of what I'd done. I texted Becca, "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I'm here whenever you're ready. Love you and the kids more than anything." No reply. Not yet. Lou and I ate toast in silence, then drove to the garage. The tackle box was on the top shelf where Harold had left it. My hands trembled as I pulled it down, dust flying. Inside, rusted hooks, faded lures, a few old photos of him and his army buddies from the 70s. And tucked in a side compartment, a small brass key with a tag. First Federal, Box 1847. First Federal Bank downtown, the branch we'd used since the 80s. I'd never known about a safe deposit box. Harold had handled all the finances, said it was his thing. I trusted him. We drove straight there. The bank manager, a kind woman named Rosa, who'd known us for decades, looked surprised when I asked about Box 1847. "Of course, Mrs. Ellis. Your husband added you as co-signer years ago. We've been waiting for someone to claim it since he passed." Guilt flickered in her eyes. She knew, or suspected. She led us to the vault, unlocked the outer door with her key, and left me alone with mine. The box was heavy when I pulled it from the wall. Lou waited outside the privacy booth. I needed to do this part alone. Inside, a thick manila envelope addressed to me in Harold's handwriting. "For Margaret, only if something happens to me." Below it, a smaller jewelry box and a flash drive labeled insurance. I opened the envelope first. Dozens of pages. Harold's confession, dated just 3 months before his heart attack. "My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and somehow you've found out the truth. I pray you never do, but if you have, you deserve to hear it from me, not from letters or strangers. I met Clara in 1981 on a job in LA. I was 32, lonely, far from home. She was married to a wealthy developer, unhappy, beautiful in a way that made me forget myself. What started as drinks after work became an affair. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd end it when the project finished. But I didn't. When I met you in 1984, I tried to break it off. I swear I did. You were everything Clara wasn't. Kind, steady real. You made me laugh like no one else. I fell in love with you hard and fast. I thought marrying you would force me to choose right. But Clara told me she was pregnant. I panicked. Her husband traveled constantly. She said the baby was mine. I couldn't abandon a child, so I stayed in both worlds. Cowardly, I know. Gregory was born in '88. I saw him first when he was 6 months old, in a hotel room in San Francisco. He had my eyes. From that moment, I was trapped by guilt. I never stopped loving you, Maggie. You were my home, my safe place. The life we built, Becca, our home, our traditions, that was real to me. Clara was the mistake I couldn't fix. I paid for Gregory because it was right. I hid the trust because I was ashamed. I almost told you a dozen times after your miscarriage, after your surgery, after Becca's wedding. But I was terrified of losing you. The jewelry box contains the engagement ring I bought Clara in 1986. The one I never gave her because I chose you instead. I want you to have it. Sell it. Throw it in the Puget Sound. Do whatever heals you. The flash drive has everything. Bank records, emails, photos. Insurance, in case Clara or Gregory ever tried to hurt you or Becca after I was gone. Use it if you need to protect yourself. I'm so sorry, Maggie. I was a weak man who loved 2 women and hurt both. You deserved all of me, and I gave you half. If there's an afterlife, I'll spend it making it up to you. All my love, forever. Harold. Tears blurred the words by the end. Not just anger now. Grief, fresh and raw, for the man I'd loved and the marriage I'd thought was whole. I opened the jewelry box. Inside, a stunning platinum ring with a 2-carat diamond, flawless, worth tens of thousands. The ring he'd almost given her instead of me. I closed the box, hands shaking. Then I plugged the flash drive into my phone with an adapter. Files. Years of transactions, emails between Harold and Clara arguing about money, about Gregory, about me. One from Clara in 2015. If you don't leave her soon, I'll tell her everything myself. Harold's reply, you will do no such thing. Maggie is fragile after the cancer scare. I won't destroy her. Fragile. That's what he'd thought of me. I sat there for a long time, reading, crying, raging in silence. When I finally emerged, Lou took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug.
There's more, I said.
A lot more. We drove home, and I showed her everything. By evening, Becca texted, "Can we come over?
Need to talk."
They arrived an hour later, Becca, the kids, and surprisingly, Daniel trailing behind with luggage. Becca looked exhausted, eyes red. "The kids want to open presents with Grandma," she said quietly. "And we need to figure this out as a family." Daniel looked like he hadn't slept. "Maggie, I owe you an apology. A big one." We put the kids in the living room with gifts and cocoa. The adults gathered in the kitchen. Daniel spoke first. "I met Gregory through a real estate networking event 3 years ago. He mentioned his dad was an engineer named Harold Ellis. I thought it was coincidence until he showed me a photo. Then Harold pulled me aside before he died, asked me to keep an eye on the boy if anything happened, said there was a trust, but not to tell anyone unless necessary. I thought he meant protect it from taxes or something. I didn't know about Clara, about the affair. I swear." Becca looked at him. "But you knew I had a brother, and didn't tell me." "I was wrong," Daniel said, voice breaking. "I thought I was protecting you. From pain. From complications with the estate. But I see now, I was protecting myself. The investments were good money. I was greedy and stupid." Becca turned to me. "Mom, I read some of the letters you left on the table last night. Dad, he really did love you, in his messed up way." I showed them Harold's confession letter. We read it together, passing pages, tears falling. When we finished, Becca hugged me tight. "He chose you, Mom." Over and over. He just couldn't let go of the guilt. Daniel nodded. "I'm going to unwind every deal with Gregory. Give back any profit that came from Harold's money. And I'm starting therapy. Couples counseling if you'll have me, Becca. Individual if not." Becca didn't answer right away. "I need time. But for the kids, we'll stay through New Year's. Figure it out day by day." The rest of Christmas Day was quiet but healing. The kids opened presents, we ate leftovers, watched movies. No one mentioned Clara or Gregory again. But 2 days later, my lawyer Laura Jennings called. "Bad news, Maggie. Clara and Gregory are contesting the will, claiming Harold was coerced into the confession letter, that you forged it or pressured him while he was ill."
What?
That's insane. They've hired a shark attorney in California, and they've filed for emergency injunction on the trust assets. War was coming. That night, I got another text from Gregory this time. "We need to talk. Alone. There's something about Mom you don't know. Something Dad never told you." Against Lou's advice, I agreed to meet him. Neutral ground, a coffee shop in downtown Tacoma. He looked nervous when I arrived. No expensive watch now, just a paper cup trembling in his hands. "I didn't want this fight," he said immediately. "Mom, Clara, she's pushing it. She always has. Dad gave her power of attorney over the trust years ago. She's the one who invested aggressively, made it grow. She's terrified of losing control." I stayed silent, waiting. "There's more," he continued. "Dad wasn't just guilty about me. He was protecting you from Clara. She threatened to hurt you once. In the 90s. Said if he ever left her completely, she'd make sure you had an accident. Dad believed her. She comes from money, old California connections. He stayed involved to keep her calm." My blood ran cold. "You're saying Clara is dangerous?" "I'm saying she's capable of anything when cornered. And right now, she's cornered." As I drove home, my phone rang. Sheriff Tom Harlan, an old friend from church. "Maggie, got a strange call from San Diego PD. They want to talk to you about Clara Voss. Something about an old unsolved case from the 80s. Assault on a woman who dated her husband before he died." The twists weren't over. Harold had protected me in ways I'd never imagined. But now, the real danger might be just beginning. The week between Christmas and New Year's felt like walking through fog, thick, disorienting, impossible to see more than a few steps ahead. Becca and the kids stayed with me, sleeping in their old rooms, filling the house with the sounds of cartoons and laughter that felt both comforting and fragile. Daniel came by every day, helping with chores, playing with Lily and Jack, sitting silently when Becca needed space. They were trying therapy appointments booked, honest conversations late into the night, but trust is a slow thing to rebuild. I, on the other hand, was preparing for battle. Laura Jennings, my attorney, turned out to be a force of nature. Sharp-suited, mid-50s, with a voice like polished steel. We met in her Seattle office overlooking Elliott Bay, files spread across the conference table like a war map. "Clara and Gregory's filing is aggressive," she said, tapping the complaint. "They're claiming undue influence on Harold's part toward you, emotional distress, even hinting at elder financial abuse in his last years. It's nonsense, but it's meant to drag this out and cost you money." "And the San Diego police inquiry?" I asked. Laura slid a folder across. Sheriff Harlan forwarded it. 1987. Assault on a woman named Elena Ruiz, a secretary who dated Clara's late husband briefly. Beaten badly in a parking garage, never solved. Witnesses said a woman matching Clara's description was seen arguing with her days before. Clara was questioned, alibied by, guess who? Harold.
Exactly.
He swore she was in LA with him the night of the attack. Case went cold. Now, with Clara contesting the will, San Diego wants to re-interview anyone connected. My stomach turned. Gregory said Clara threatened me once, that Harold stayed involved to keep her from hurting me. Laura's eyes narrowed. If we can prove a pattern of intimidation, it flips their narrative, makes Clara the aggressor. But we need evidence, more than Gregory's word. Gregory. I hadn't heard from him since our coffee shop meeting. His warning echoed. She's capable of anything when cornered. New Year's Eve came and went quietly, sparkling cider with the kids. Early bedtime. At midnight, Becca hugged me tight. This year's going to be better, Mom. I promise. I wanted to believe her. January 3rd brought the first real escalation. I was in the garden, pruning dead roses despite the chill, when my phone rang, unknown number, California area code. Margaret Ellis? A woman's voice, older, hesitant. Yes. This is Emily Kane, Victor Kane's daughter. You don't know me, but my father worked with Harold and Clara a long time ago.
I think we need to talk.
Victor Kane, the name from the old tapes I'd found years ago. No, wait, that was another life. But the coincidence prickled. How did you get my number? Gregory Voss. He reached out after Christmas. Said things were getting ugly, that you might need to know the full story about Clara. I gripped the phone. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you meet me? I'm in Portland this week. Family business. We arranged to meet the next day at a quiet cafe in downtown Tacoma. Emily arrived promptly, mid-40s, dark hair, sharp features that reminded me vaguely of old photos. She carried a small leather satchel. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the booth. Gregory filled me in on the Christmas dinner. Sounds intense. You could say that. She opened the satchel and pulled out a yellowed folder. My father died 10 years ago. He left me this, told me to use it only if Clara Voss ever came after someone I cared about. Dad and Clara go way back. 1970s. They were part of a crew bank job in Portland, United Pacific, 1973. Over $1 million stolen. Never recovered. My breath caught. The old tapes. Harold had been involved too? No, this was before we met. Harold was the planner. Emily continued quietly. Dad handled vehicles. Clara was the inside woman, seduced the manager for codes. It went clean, money buried in Mount Hood Forest. But Clara wanted more. She tried to double-cross them, take the whole cash. Dad and Harold stopped her, threatened exposure. She backed off, took her cut, moved to California. I stared at the folder. Proof. Photos, maps, Dad's journal.
Coordinates to the Barry site.
And letters, Clara threatening Dad years later when he needed money for my mom's cancer treatment. She said she'd pin the old robbery on him if he didn't stay quiet. Why tell me now? Because Gregory says Clara's talking about making you disappear if the trust fight goes south. She's old, but she still has connections. Old money, favors owed. Dad always said Clara doesn't lose gracefully. I took the folder with shaking hands. Thank you, Emily. There's one more thing. The money's still there. Dad checked a few years ago, disturbed dirt, but the cash untouched. Over $3 million in today's value, adjusted for inflation and compounds Harold secretly invested part of. $3 million. Buried since 1973. I drove home in a daze. Folder on the passenger seat. Called Laura immediately. This changes everything, she said after I explained. Old felony, statute long expired, but if Clara's using threats tied to it, we can get a restraining order, maybe trigger federal interest in the unsolved heist. But that night, The threat became real. I woke around 2 a.m. to the sound of glass breaking downstairs. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone, and the baseball bat Harold kept under the bed. Crept to the top of the stairs. Downstairs, the kitchen window was shattered, cold air pouring in. On the floor, a brick wrapped in paper. I called 911, then Sheriff Tom Harlan directly. He arrived with deputies within minutes, lights flashing silently in the street. The note on the brick: drop the suit, or next time it's not a window. No prints, gloved hands. Security cameras caught a dark figure in a hoodie, unidentifiable. Tom stayed after the others left, boarding the window temporarily. Maggie, this matches the San Diego MO, intimidation tactics. We're taking it seriously. Becca overheard from the stairs, face pale. Mom, we need to leave. Go somewhere safe. No, I said firmly. This is my home. Clara doesn't get to scare me out. But inside, fear not. Next morning, Gregory called. I heard about the break-in. It wasn't me. Mom's in Palm Springs, but she is people. I'm scared for you. And for me. I told her I met you, gave you Emily's info. She's furious. Come here, I said. Today. We end this together. He arrived by noon, looking haggard. We sat at the kitchen table, me, Gregory, Becca, Daniel, Lou. I want no part of her war, Gregory said. I'll sign over whatever claim I have. Testify that Dad wanted you protected. But we need to stop her. Laura joined via Zoom. If Gregory flips, the contest collapses. But Clara won't go quietly. That afternoon, Emily arrived too, with the coordinates and journal. We spread maps on the table. If we recover the original heist money, Emily said, it's unclaimed property. Statute expired. Belongs to finders technically. But more importantly, it proves Clara's criminal past. Ties her hands. A plan formed. Recover the cash. Quietly. Use it as leverage. Daniel, surprisingly useful now, offered his truck and outdoor gear. I owe you this, Maggie. We set out the next day. Me, Gregory, Emily, Daniel. Lou stayed with Becca and the kids. Sheriff Harlan alerted discreetly. Mount Hood National Forest, deep winter snow. Coordinates led to an old logging road, then a hike through pines. Gregory and Emily dug where the map indicated, under a distinctive boulder. Hours later, metal clanged on shovel. A rusted lockbox, larger than expected. Inside, vacuum-sealed bags of cash, hundreds, 50s, crisp for their age. And ledgers. Clara's handwriting detailing the split. Threats if anyone talked. Jackpot. But as we loaded it into the truck, headlights pierced the trees. A black SUV blocked the road. Clara's driver, hired muscle, stepped out. Mrs. Voss wants her property back. Daniel grabbed a shovel. Gregory stepped forward. It's over. Shots rang out, warning into the air. We froze. Then sirens. Sheriff Harlan tipped off, arriving with deputies. The muscle fled, but not before dropping a phone. On it, texts from Clara. Get the money. Silence them if necessary. Arrest warrant issued for Clara Voss. Conspiracy, intimidation, ties to the old heist reopened federally. She was taken into custody in Palm Springs 2 days later. The money? Turned over voluntarily. Unclaimed after 50 years. Most went to state, but finders' reward substantial. Split between us. Taxes paid. The rest funded college for Lily and Jack, a trust for Gregory to start clean, and a donation to women's shelters in Harold's name. Clara's trial loomed. Elderly, health failing, but facing real time. Gregory moved to Tacoma, started therapy, began building a relationship with Becca, slow, cautious, but real. Daniel and Becca reconciled fully by spring. And me? I sold the house, bought a smaller cottage on the Sound, planted new roses. Harold's letter stayed in my bedside drawer. I read it sometimes, not for forgiveness, but reminder. Betrayal almost destroyed me, but truth and the family I chose saved me. The war was over, but the healing? That was just beginning. Spring arrived early that year in Tacoma, cherry blossoms exploding pink against the gray skies, the Sound sparkling on sunny days like it was trying to wash away the winter's stains. 6 months had passed since the night I turned Christmas Eve into a battlefield, and the dust was finally settling. But healing, real healing, doesn't happen in a straight line. It zigzags, backtracks, surprises you when you think you're done. Clara Voss never went to trial. In late February, just weeks after her arrest in Palm Springs, she suffered a massive stroke in custody. The federal charges, conspiracy to intimidate, attempted extortion tied to the old heist, were serious, but at 83, with advanced COPD and now hemiplegia, the judge granted compassionate release. She returned to her retirement community under house arrest, oxygen tank permanently at her side, monitored by an ankle bracelet. The civil suit against the trust collapsed without her testimony. Gregory formally renounced any claim, signing everything over to Becca and me. The hidden $800,000 became ours outright. After taxes, enough to secure the grandkids' futures and let me breathe easier. I visited Clara once. In April, on a day when the wisteria was blooming purple along the Puget Sound highways. I drove south to California with Lou riding shotgun, her country music playlist keeping us company. We didn't tell anyone else, not Becca, not Gregory. This was something I needed to do alone, well, with Lou as backup. The retirement community was upscale, manicured lawns, golf carts humming along paths, residents in pastel activewear playing pickleball. Clara's villa overlooked a man-made lake. A nurse let us in, warning, she's weak today. 10 minutes max. Clara sat in a recliner by the window, frail as tissue paper, half her face slack from the stroke. But her eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, were the same. Margaret, she rasped, gesturing weakly to the chair opposite. Didn't expect you'd come. I almost didn't, I admitted, sitting. Lou hovered by the door, like a bodyguard.
Clara studied me.
You won. Happy? No, I said honestly. Winning didn't feel like I thought it would. She gave a bitter half-smile. Harold always said you were too good for him. Too good for all of us. Did he? I leaned forward. Then why did he stay with you for 40 years? Why build a whole secret life? Her good hand trembled on the armrest. Because I had his son, and because I knew how to make him feel alive. You made him feel safe. He needed both. I felt the old rage rise, but it was tired now, worn down by time. You threatened me. The brick through my window. The man in the forest, you're doing. She didn't deny it. I was desperate. The money was my security. Harold promised I'd never want. Then he died and left it to the boy. But Gregory's soft. He was going to give it away to you out of guilt. I couldn't let that happen. And the woman in San Diego? Elena Ruiz. Clara's eyes closed briefly. She was going to tell my husband about the affair. I lost control. Harold cleaned it up, alibi, paid hospital bills. He was good at cleaning up my messes. I stood. I'm not here for confession, Clara. I'm here to tell you it's over. The money's gone to good places. Gregory's building a life here, near us. He's learning what family really means. And me, I'm done carrying your shadows. She looked out the window at the lake. Harold loved you more. In the end, he told me the year before he died. He was cutting me off, moving everything to you and Becca. I begged. He wouldn't budge. I hadn't known that. Harold's letter had hinted, but not this clearly. Goodbye, Clara. As Lou and I walked out, I felt something loosen in my chest, like a knot I'd carried for decades finally giving way. Gregory became family.
Slowly.
Awkward Sunday dinners at first, him sitting stiffly at the table where I'd exposed him months before. But the kids warmed to him. Uncle Greg, who fixed their bikes and told bad dad jokes. Becca watched warily, but over time, she saw he wasn't Clara. He was Harold's son, yes, but choosing different paths. Therapy, volunteering at a youth center, returning profits from old deals with Daniel. Daniel and Becca rebuilt stronger. Counseling twice a week, date nights, transparency about finances. Daniel sold his stake in the questionable investments, took a pay cut to move to a less stressful job. "I want to be the man you deserve," he told her one night when they thought I was asleep. I heard through the wall and smiled in the dark. Emily Kane stayed in touch too. The finder's reward from the heist cash, after the state took its share, was life-changing for her. She paid off medical debt from her mother's long illness, bought a small house in Portland. We met for coffee sometimes. Two women connected by fathers who'd made terrible choices but tried, in the end, to protect us. I sold the Rambler in late spring. Too many memories, good and bad, embedded in those walls. Bought a light-filled cottage on the water in Gig Harbor, walking distance from Becca's house. White clapboard, blue shutters, a porch swing overlooking the bay. I planted roses along the fence, yellow ones this time, for new beginnings. One warm June evening, the whole family gathered there for the first time. Becca, Daniel, the kids, Gregory, even Emily for dessert. Lou brought her famous potato salad. We grilled salmon, watched the sun set pink and gold over the water, fairies gliding silently in the distance. Lily tugged my hand. "Grandma, tell us a story. The one about how you were brave." The adults went quiet. Becca smiled softly.
"Yeah, Mom."
"Tell them the PG version." I laughed, pulling Lily onto my lap. Once upon a time, there was a grandma who discovered some old secrets in her house. Secrets that made her sad and angry. But instead of hiding from them, she turned on all the lights so everyone could see the truth. It was scary, people yelled, hearts got hurt. But in the end, the truth made room for new, better things. Like bigger family barbecues. Jack piped up. And treasure hunts in the forest. Gregory chuckled. "Something like that, buddy." Later, after the kids were asleep on the porch in sleeping bags, the adults lingered around the fire pit. Gregory raised his glass, sparkling water for him these days. "To Maggie," he said, "who taught me blood doesn't make family. Courage does. And truth." Becca clinked her glass.
"To Mom."
"The strongest woman I know." Daniel added quietly. "And to Harold. Flawed as hell, but he chose right in the end." I looked around at their faces glowing in the firelight. My daughter, my son-in-law redeemed, my unexpected stepson finding his way, my friends Lou and Emily. The sound lapped gently at the shore below. I raised my glass last. To all of us. For surviving the ashes and building something beautiful from them. We drank. The stars came out, bright and clear. That night, I took Harold's confession letter from my bedside drawer one last time. Read it in the moonlight streaming through the window. Then I walked to the fire pit, still smoldering, and fed the pages to the flames. I watched them curl and blacken, words turning to ash and floating away on the night breeze. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to stop letting the past poison your present. I turned off the lights and went to bed in my new cottage, the sound of waves my lullaby. The war was truly over, and for the first time in years, I slept without dreams of shattered glass or hidden letters. Just peace. Quiet, hard-won, beautiful peace. It was Christmas Eve again. 1 full year since the night I shattered my family's illusions at the dining table. This time, the house was different. My little cottage on the water in Gig Harbor glowed with soft white lights strung along the porch railing, reflecting on the calm Puget Sound like scattered stars. The air smelled of pine from the modest tree in the corner and cinnamon from the cookies baking in the oven. No prime rib extravaganza tonight, just lasagna, salad, and store-bought pie. Simple. Intentional. I stood at the kitchen window, watching the fairy lights glide across the bay, a mug of spiced tea warming my hands. At 63 now, my reflection in the glass looked softer somehow, gray hair longer, lines around my eyes deeper, but there was a steadiness in my gaze that hadn't been there before. The doorbell rang, followed by the joyful chaos of grandchildren bursting through the door. Grandma, Lily, and Jack shouted in unison, barrels of energy despite the late hour. Lily, now 9, carried a handmade ornament, a glittery star with "Family is what you choose" written in careful marker. Jack, 7, thrust a poorly wrapped gift at me. "Open it now." Becca followed, arms full of presents and a casserole dish. "Mom, it smells amazing in here." She kissed my cheek, her eyes bright. No shadows tonight. Daniel trailed behind with bags and a bottle of good red wine. "Merry Christmas, Maggie." His hug was warm, genuine. The last year had changed him, less stressed, more present. Therapy had worked wonders. Gregory arrived next, snowflakes melting on his coat, carrying a tray of his now famous tiramisu. Traffic was light from Tacoma. He smiled shyly, still adjusting to being included, but fitting better each time. Lou bustled in last, cheeks rosy from the cold, bearing a poinsettia and her usual sarcasm. "If one more person wishes me happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, I'm going full Grinch." Emily Kane had sent regrets. She was spending the holiday with her own extended family in Portland, but promised to visit in January. We gathered in the living room, fire crackling, Bing Crosby crooning softly from the speakers. The tree was smaller than last year's, but the ornaments told our story. Old ones from when Becca was little, new ones the kids had made, a few Gregory had brought from his childhood with Clara, now reframed as part of the bigger picture. After dinner, we opened presents slowly, savoring. Lily got the art set she'd begged for. Jack a new skateboard with promises of lessons from Uncle Greg. Becca and Daniel exchanged meaningful looks over a shared gift, a weekend getaway voucher, their first trip alone since the kids. My gifts were thoughtful, a framed family photo from Becca, taken last summer at the beach, all of us laughing, Gregory included. A beautiful leather journal from Gregory, engraved for new chapters. And from Lou, a ridiculous sweater with a cat wearing a Santa hat that said, "Meowie Christmas." When the kids finally crashed on the couch under blankets, the adults migrated to the porch with blankets and hot cocoa spiked with a little Baileys. The night was clear, stars sharp overhead, the water lapping gently below. Becca leaned against Daniel. "Hard to believe it's been a year since everything." Daniel nodded. "I still wake up sometimes thinking it was a dream. The good parts and the bad." Gregory stared out at the water. "I got a letter from Mom last week. Clara. She's fading. The stroke took more this time. She asked if I'd visit." We all went quiet. "Are you going?" I asked softly. He sighed. "I think so. Not for forgiveness, exactly. More for closure. She raised me alone, gave me everything she could, but she also taught me what not to be." Becca reached over and squeezed his hand. "If you go, take pictures of the ocean for her. She always loved that." I smiled at them, my daughter, So much wiser now. Extending grace, I wasn't sure I could. My book comes out in March, I said quietly, changing the subject. I'd finally written it. Not a